Hey everyone, I'm Dave from JudgingFtW, and today I'm here to answer a question I've heard quite a lot. In a 4-player EDH game, Amy plays Thassa's Oracle, which will win her the game. Nick and Olive both pass during their opportunity to respond, hoping a later player will stop it. But then Pat says, well, I guess we lose. At this point, Nick reveals a Force of Will in his hand, and says that he will counter Amy's spell, but only if Olive and Pat both tap all of their lands to prevent him from getting blown out on his next turn. Is such an offer allowed? If so, would Nick even be able to fulfill his end of the bargain, given that he's already passed during his chance to respond to Thassa's Oracle? Maybe you've heard of a situation like this happening, or perhaps it's happened to you in a game that you are a part of. Olive and Pat probably aren't very happy to tap out, since they can easily recognize that Nick threatens to win the game himself next turn, or at least set himself up pretty well to do so. On the other hand, they don't have much choice, since Amy is about to win the game right then and there. Nick's offer to intervene, but only if the other players essentially hand the game to him rather than Amy, is called mana bullying. And it's a unique feature of combining the competitive ethos of tournament magic with the multiplayer nature of formats like EDH. The ethical and strategical aspects of this tactic are a little bit outside my area of expertise, but the rules concerning whether it works are right up my alley. So let's take a look. In order to understand exactly what's going on here, we're first going to need to know a little bit about how spells resolve. You probably already know that if someone plays a spell in a game of Magic, it won't resolve until after all players have had a chance to play another spell or ability in response. This prerogative to cast a spell is known as priority in the game rules, and any spell on the stack will not resolve until after all players have had priority to respond and chosen not to. So let's apply that to the situation from the original problem statement. First, Amy casts Thassa's Oracle. Because she cast this spell, Amy will be the first one to get priority after its casting is completed. Maybe you've heard someone hold priority after casting a spell, so that they can immediately respond to their own spell with another one. This is how that officially works. In the case that we're considering though, Amy chose to do nothing or pass priority. This means Nick, the next player in turn order, will get priority. He and Olive after him both chose to pass, so now Pat has priority. If Pat passes, then that would mean that all players have passed priority in succession, so the thing on top of the stack, Thassa's Oracle, will resolve. This is where Nick brings up that he can stop it, but oops, he's already passed priority, so it looks like it's too late for him to cast that Force of Will. Except this is where a little bit of a trick comes in. See, the top object on the stack can only resolve if all players pass priority in succession. That is, they all have to pass without anyone taking any actions while they have priority. Casting another spell in response would obviously count as taking an action, but so would activating an ability, even a mana ability. For example, tapping a land. This is exactly what Nick is asking for. If Pat takes any action, including tapping a land for mana, that will reset the clock, so to speak, on the priority. Because one player did something when they had priority, that means everyone hasn't passed priority all in a row, meaning that each player, starting with Pat this time, will need to take priority again in order for the Thassa's Oracle to resolve. In this way, Pat and even Olive, who's technically passed her opportunity to take actions, will both be legally allowed by the rules of Magic to tap their lands, and after this has happened, there will still be one final round of priority during which Nick would legally be allowed to at last cast his Force of Will. So that's how mana bullying works within the framework of the rules. Let's note that Nick does need to be a little bit careful. If the last player cannot take an action, then they will have no choice but to pass priority, allowing the spell to resolve. This might have ramifications if, for example, Pat doesn't control any untapped permanents. In this case, Nick might need to reveal his Force of Will during Olive's turn, since if Pat cannot take an action to prompt a new round of priority passes, then the whole point is moot. There's also a little bit of risk for Nick too. If Pat doesn't have any preference between losing to Amy or most likely losing to Nick, then the smart play might be for Pat to just pass priority and let the Thassa's Oracle resolve anyway. Pat may thereby decrease the chances of being put into a similar situation in the future by developing a reputation as a player who doesn't acquiesce to mana bullying. In any case, that's what you need to know about how mana bullying functions. Hopefully, understanding exactly how it works will help you to make more refined decisions about whether to allow your opponents to mana bully you, or even decide whether it's worth trying to employ this tactic yourself.